Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Amplifying F Sharp. This week we have Demian, who is going to talk us about F Sharp analyzers, how to update them to .NET 7, and also try to use the analyzer itself to build some cool stuff. But before we get into the details of this session, I want to take the time to recap what we did last week. So last week we had Charles, who was working on the implementing the syntax for creating immutable arrays. As you can see here on our webpage, you have already the session recorded here. So if you didn't have the time to look at that, you can basically watch that now, and we'll basically show you what we did. But to do a recap, we managed to get a lot done. We managed to have a almost working version. We had to leave it at the IL generation level because we didn't have much time for that. But there's a PR. Nevertheless, there's a PR already on the compiler that was updated with our changes there. And Charles is working on finishing that. So yeah, it should be amazing if Charles managed to finish this, and if we can help him, he will let us know, I'm sure. So yeah, that's it from immutable arrays. And also there was from the session before, there was a PR that was open on the compiler about some issues on the signature file generation. That PR was merged as well, so we can see that the job that we are doing here, our contributions are being making a difference in the F Sharp ecosystem, which is really good. I'm really happy for that. But for today's session, we have Demian Reeves, which he is working on an open source project that is his project, and he's using F Sharp analyzers, and he needs to analyzer being updated to .NET 7, and yeah, so that was what we're doing this week. Okay, without further ado, let me hand it over to Demian, and so we can work on that. So it's all yours, Demian.
Awesome, thanks, Edgar. Yeah, so my name is Damian Reeves, and I actually work on an open source project by the name of Morpher. It's about modeling business logic and using functional domain modeling. And most of our tooling is actually in Elm, but I've started in the last 2 months a initiative where we want to migrate all the tooling that's in Elm over to .NET and in F Sharp. And it's kind of like a compiler tool chain, and we've got like an Elm compiler, and we tape that, and we create a data format, and from that data format we generate different code. And I've always felt that we can use F Sharp instead of Elm. F Sharp with .NET has like this whole ecosystem packaging. You get NuGet, MS Build, much more mature than the Elm ecosystem. And also with Fable 4 that came out recently, we try to target multiple language ecosystems, and with Fable giving us JavaScript and TypeScript, and with their plans for PHP and Rust, now seemed like the perfect time for the move. But the issue is F Sharp is really way more powerful than we need. So I was interested in restricting F Sharp as a language, and that's where the analyzers came in. I was away from .NET for a bit, so I jumped back in .NET 7 and tried to look at F Sharp analyzers, and in asking around, it seems like number one that we need to upgrade it. I hope I'm correct in that analysis, that we need to get it on the latest things for everything to work. So that's kind of a description of the task. I don't know this is my first time really playing around with all this stuff, so it's good to have like the guardrails of everyone here. Let me, I guess, start by sharing my screen then.
Yes, please. Yeah, yeah, we can go from there. I mean, you being a .NET developer for before, so you know the how the pre-existing works and what's the normal way of updating that. But yeah, as you rightly are doing, we can start by the README of the Azure Analyzer. I know the folks from this project, they have a README, so we can see if the instructions that are enough for us to get this up and running.
Yeah. So so yeah, I've executed, I believe, some of the steps in the README. It looks like how to build, right? I checked global.json, which is interesting because global.json does say that it's on it's already on SDK version 107.0.101. So I believe next it said to do .NET tool restore, which I have done prior to this, but let me just make sure. Awesome. And not sure if I did the .NET build, but let's build and see. All right, that looks great. So let's see how to run. Before I get into changing things, I guess we want to do more than build, right? So we probably want to compile, looking really quick, how to contribute. All right, I don't see any special instructions about additional steps if you're trying to make a change. So, all right, so upgrading to .NET 7. So one thing, by the way, before this that I bumped into was I know there's a newer patch version of .NET, and I went ahead and installed this version of the SDK. But I thought there was this whole thing. Once again, been away from it. I thought there was this whole thing of like maybe being able to upgrade minimum point versions. Is that a thing that matters here, or should folks have to be on 101? You guys have any idea in that space?
Not really, but might be interesting before we start changing things. Were you able to run that sample, which the README talks about?
Let's see. Yeah, let me try that. How to run the example. Let's do this.
Yeah, I think what you are doing that is that if I remember, the only thing that changed on this, in this patched version was some issues that were introduced, or regressions that were introduced on the .NET 7.1 something. So yeah, I guess it wouldn't harm harm if we use the latest version to get the fixes, the hot fixes that they did. But yeah, for the analyzer, I don't think there is it's not going to do a big difference, I guess.
Yeah. Let's see. That command didn't work. I got my camera right at the bottom, so I can't see my command line. All right, there we go. A sharp analyzers. The run didn't work. Not sure why. Analyzers, that's CLI, F sharp. All right, let's try to build unknown switch. All righty.
So run has a dash dash project, but I'm not sure if build has that. So you might want to remove that.
Yeah. Let's do that. All right. I mean, we did do the build before. Let's try this again. Project. All right. So maybe it's just the path. Oh, this says release. Maybe I need to change it to debug here. I did not build in release mode. Let's try that. Oh, all
By the way,
right.
the default policy for the global.json is to roll forward to the latest patch, which is the last 2 digits.
Oh, thanks on that. Let me.
Maybe the paths that you are on a Mac and they have the paths for a Windows. The bars are in the other way around, maybe. And the I don't know if that will make a difference. The src slash.
All right. I'm sorry. All right, that will. That looks all right. Let me try and. Let's src.
I think it's like Edgar says, the -- project is having Windows slashes, and your command line is mistaking those for other arguments.
They all look. Wait, am I missing something? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing. You mean the after the second?
Yes, yes. So you have .NET Run -- project, then the source, and the slash there is the Windows one, and you want a //
Ah, thank you. I was looking at the end of the line. Sorry.
No worries.
All right, everything else looks good. Except let me fix that. Bin and design. Yeah, let's do verbose. Ah, sorry about that.
Hours. I made the same mistake countless times when I'm trying to run something that is only configured for Windows. So, like, why?
See some interesting thing. Running the analyzer failed to get context for file. Microsoft. Maybe take a quick look at the analyzer. Assembly info.
That has a net6, reference to .NET 6. That's interesting. That the OBJ debug net6.
OBJ debug.
Yeah, in the last info, the last info part.
Yeah, we've got info.
Could we double check that file exists just as a sanity? The assembly info .fs, which it's trying to run.
You want to make sure the option and analyzer assembly info.fs is there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I do not see that. Actually, let me really double check, but I do not see it in the side. Maybe if I go back to build and I do with release, despite what this said, maybe this will help me somehow. Or maybe I missed the instruction. Definitely said .NET build. Any of you remember what the release flag is?
-C and then the word release. So C for configuration,
Oh,
and then release.
See if that helps. I know some tools generate assembly info in release mode. Still don't see an assembly info, which is interesting.
Could you open the opt folder?
Yeah, that's where I did. Let me look at yeah, there's no assembly info.
No, there is. If you go to the previous project for the project view, you can see that there is an obj folder. Can you expand that obj folder just after? Yeah, that one.
I get what you mean. I'm sorry.
And then release. I guess I'll put about them.
Oh, yeah, it's there now.
Yeah, that's
yeah. Let's try it again now that I've done this in release mode. It may have just been me running a debug. Wow. Wait for it. And waiting.
You guys is doing something more than crashing now.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess now if you go to the sample, oh no, still
No, still the same thing.
okay.
That's still saying, wait, did I do this right now? It's still saying running analyzers for bin debug.
That may make sense because we're doing .NET Run and not really passing in the release configuration. So the analyzer is being loaded from the release folder, but the project itself is probably being evaluated in debug.
Yeah. Do I have to do another .c? And I guess the question there, is it for the run or is it for the analyzer?
It would be -c before the double dash you have there.
Yep, got you.
And also there is some extra double dash before the project, but I don't think that makes a difference. It's just the
No, it should be there. It's
Yeah,
sort of
this one's to separate the args.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's good. I thought that was a typo. That's good. Something new.
Oh, geez, did I wanted, I'm not sure if case matters. I'll find out in a moment.
That's a good question.
You guys have to excuse me, as I said, I was a longtime .NET guy for almost 20 years. Then I've been in the Scala space, so I'm still not as proficient with some of the tools as I've got back into .NET recently.
No worries about that.
All right, let's see. Please. Yeah, it's still running analyzers for, I wonder. Maybe we can look at the analyzer CLI. Maybe we can see exactly if it has an option that's not a project or something.
Mm-hmm.
Analyzer's path. Let's go to, I guess, let's go to main. Packages, analyzers. Loaded analyzers.
It is weird, it's an unhandled exception, so there must be a underscore somewhere that, you know, a wildcard that might
Yeah.
be, because
Well, wait, that text has to be somewhere. Loaded analyzers. I see registered. Where's my run-in analyzers? That might be somewhere else.
I think it's on line 115. Run projects.
150?
115.
15, sorry.
15.
Let's see, 115.
So,
All right.
yeah, it says they are running analyzers at some point.
yeah, like this. Line 20.
Yeah, down here.
Mhm.
And it says running analyzers for. How does it actually get to this path? It starts. Oh, I'm gonna just put a print. Let's add another print here. It's so much for the happy path. All right, all paths look okay. Let's try it again. While that's going, let's see. I should load project tools path.
So this looks like info, which is the same component that's being used in a facade complete and at INI to sort of load your projects.
Yeah.
That's trying to load the project. That's how it knew what kind of files need to be processed. And I'm guessing it's running the first assembly info.fs, which is a generated file. And it's just already is unable to analyze any file. So that's most likely what we're seeing.
What are the chances if I?
Oh, that's going to be regenerated at some point. So
Yeah, okay. I guess I latched on to you saying the first assembly info. I was wondering if it was just looking in subfolders, but I would assume it's smarter than that.
oh, it will have done an NMS build type of dance to get all the project information. But I see the main man has arrived.
Yeah.
Good morning, Chester.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry for arriving late.
Yeah.
This wizard is never late.
That was a good one. I like that.
It looks like we are deep into some fun here, huh?
So just kind of failed on just following the steps in the README. So we're trying to run the sample. And at least for me, it's failing.
Okay. So, all right, let's
So running that line, and we get the error above.
I'm quickly refreshing myself on what exactly we say to do. Okay, so we're just trying to run the tool against a project. Okay, sweet. And what the tool is doing is cracking the project, type checking it, and then passing that analyzer context to the analyzer. Okay, great. Yeah, and we can't make the context. I see. So have you been able to debug this or not? Or are you just invoking from the
Invoking from
things?
The command line, and at best so far we've done my old school print line debugging. I'll be honest, I never got debugging set up for Visual Studio Code. So
well, hopefully this will work nicely. We can try. It should be like pretty simple to set up, and it might be a useful thing to walk through to see if we can figure out what's going on.
awesome.
So the easiest way to do it, see what's going to be the best way. So by default, F5 is just going to launch the project or the CLI, which is not super useful, right? Because the tool needs arguments to run, right? And so there's two ways to do this. You could either make like a completely manual launch config, or you could make a way that is a little bit more integrated with VS Code. And let's go that way. So have you heard of the concept launch settings before?
I have, but I've never mastered them.
It's kind of an ASP.NET Core concept that has gotten a little more viral, and it's specifically for uses like this. So in a project, in a special location, you can have a file called launch settings.json, and you can make little JSON descriptions of ways you want to launch or want to be able to launch the program. And then in .NET Run, .NET Watch, and Ionide, we will actually detect that file and give you like quick launch options for that. So the idea is one location where you can set these things up, and it would integrate with a whole bunch of different tooling. And naturally, this works in Big Boy VS as well. Where is... this is kind of embarrassing. I'm really bad at finding the
Launch
sort
settings.
of canonical, the canonical documentation for
There
this.
is a, on the left toolbar, the third icon from the top, there has a, icon that look like a run and debug.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh no, so that is
that will create a launch.
this is the VS Code launch JSON, right? Which is a VS Code specific concept where you can define different launch configurations, and what I am talking about is a separate file,
All right.
which I dumped into chat here, and this is like a tooling agnostic file that Ionide bridges into the VS Code specific experience for you. So what we can do is briefly follow the instructions here. So if you make a file called launch settings JSON and put it in a directory called properties in your underneath your project, then you can make a profile that provides arguments, right? And you can see how it looks like in VS here. It will look a little bit more integrated for VS Code, and then we can debug and figure out what's going on.
Do you have the case-in on properties? I'm on a Mac, so I'm sure.
Capital P.
Capital P.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's do that.
This is one of those things where the .NET CLI should probably have an item template, so you could do like .NET new launch settings, and it would.
We want to do that for the analyzer CLI or at the root of the project?
The analyzer CLI. So these launch settings JSONs are project specific files.
Got you. All right, I'll just do it here then.
If you've ever used like a publish profile before, it's a similar, similar physical layout.
And this is actually called just launch.json.
Launch settings.json.
Launch settings.json.
With a capital S, because gotta make it interesting. Sweet. And now you should just be able to, yeah, perfect. So we don't care about the IIS settings at all. So you can destroy that entire block. I really love your color scheme, by the way. It makes it really easy to pick out some of this. So what you're looking at here under profile is sort of named groups of settings. In our case, we should probably just have one of them. And yeah, you picked the right one. And instead of environment sample, we could call it like README sample or something. And what we're going to do here is basically fill in the sample from the README MD, but you're going to keep the command name, just drop the .NET run messages and launch browser and application URL environment or settings in there. And then, yeah, just pass all of those arguments.
So about this much, maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And is that
and there is a key that you can add to this object here that lets you specify those arguments.
Command line args?
Yes. Perfect. Yeah. So what's happening here is VS Code has deep integration with Schema Store, the sort of open source repository for JSON schemas and YAML schemas. And it has recognized that this is the launch settings file, and it's gone to go fetch the schema for that.
So I imagine these settings are pretty ASP.NET Core specific. I can probably nerf.
You don't need anything except command name and command line args, to be honest.
Awesome.
And you actually don't need C release either.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, that's true. So now what should happen? Project is like it's an enum. You know how enum cases specify the name of the case? You're going to keep project here. Because this is like a flag.
I was just interested in the
other options.
Yeah, if it was going to tell me the other options here.
Yeah, so you do get them there. There are a whole bunch of different options. Some of them rely on you having other NuGet packages installed either in your project or in your VS install to actually drive those options. So project is the most agnostic one. So now that we have this file in place, you should be able to use this to integrate with the VS Code debugging. You might not even need to add it to your file. So if you open the debug menu on the top left, third from the left, hit show all automatic debug configurations there, and then drill down to .NET 5 and .NET Core. And Ionide should inspect your project. Yeah, see that README sample right there?
Yeah.
That's the configuration you just made.
Oh, nice. Learn something new every day.
And now that you've manually selected one once, anytime you press F5 from this point on, VS Code has remembered that, and it will default to using this unless you specify a different one.
Yes, and my plethora of VS Code extensions are barking at me, but it seems like it's actually, this is cool. I never got the Visual Studio Code launch JSON, but this.
Well, it's pretty finicky, right? So it's a JSON file. You can do placeholders, but there are lots of parts of launching a .NET application that change with debug configuration versus release, TFM that you're targeting. Like there are a whole bunch of different knobs. And so one of the things we wanted to do in Ionide is find a way to reduce the number of knobs that you had to care about. So the experience isn't perfect. Like we still had to teach people about launch settings in some cases, which is, a whole other concept to go learn about. But I think it it feels a little bit more native to the editor than having to, and easier to use than having to munge a whole bunch of JSON.
Awesome.
All right, so it's building.
I feel like my machine is being extra slow today. I don't know why.
It's the streamer's curse. All right, so we built and now it should launch. And hopefully, like if on your output panels along the bottom side here,
Yeah.
debug console should hopefully start showing some things.
Oh,
And maybe under output instead, we can go to the F# subsection of the output here.
all right. Sure. Not sure why I'm getting rainbow spinnies. Sorry, guys.
Okay, we launched.
All
We
right.
launched. This is great. So what I would expect to happen is you got a crash. You got an exception that got fired. And so I would expect us to, yes, catch on that exception.
Oh, it's just like Visual Studio Code. I mean, Visual Studio Classic.
Okay, so this is good. This is our problem. So we in the launch settings, there's a double dash that I think, yeah. Okay, this is actually great. Yeah, we just need to remove the dash project, analyzer CLIFS proj, double dash again. Sorry, that's my fault.
This guy, right at the beginning.
Yeah, and the double dash just to the right of your cursor. What happened was that sample command line in the README is how you would invoke the sample from .NET Run, which is made up of two parts: how to tell .NET Run which project to work on, and then what arguments to pass to the application, which we don't need in our case. So yeah, you can just hit that restart there. And unfortunately, in this case, what you'll see is a full rebuild is happening. There's some optimizations that Ionide could be doing here, but since you didn't actually change any application code, the overall build was still relatively quick.
Nice. That's
okay. This is what I thought might happen. When you click that restart, it used the same launch configuration, like exactly. So I think you'll have to stop like you did and then re-debug. And if you look in the top left of the debug thing, it's already got that configuration selected, so you could replay it.
I will admit I've lately been a writer user, but I did my homework, and F# analyzers do not work directly in Writer. You can use them from the CLI, or you can use it in Ionide. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. So, wow, it still has. Okay, so in this case,
I need to restart my.
This might be a bug in Ionide. You might have to reload VS Code to cause Ionide to sort of reinitialize the launch settings.
Yeah.
So flag that one for some work. But you're right that analyzers currently only work in VS Code and the CLI, and that's because they're not part of the compiler itself yet. Right, and Writer uses its own fork of F# compiler services, and VS uses its own implementation. So like all the three major editors have separate implementations here. So when you want to get something shared, you have to get it pushed into the compiler services layer. And there is ongoing effort around that. There's a tools request for comment and like PR out there. It's kind of It's a difficult thing to get right, though. So if you look at the C# space where they've had analyzers for some time now, one of the things they have had to struggle with is how to iterate on the API of analyzers, because that becomes a contract once you push something into the compiler, so you want to get it right the first time.
It seems like analyzers, and maybe it's a hornet's nest, source generators, they're becoming bigger in .NET or in C#, so it's interesting what that means for F#.
Yeah, all right, so give it a second, because it has to load your project fully, and just based on the syntax highlighting alone, I don't think it's fully loaded the project.
Yeah.
But no, you make a good point there. You can definitely see a increased level of investment for source generators, for analyzers on the C# side of the house. So one thing that Vlad and his team have to contend with is like how does F# play in that space, right? What is the story?
Yeah. This is where I should have done some VS Code foo and figure out how to not load every single Visual Studio Code extension that I have.
There's a really interesting new VS Code feature that I kind of want to play around with for some of these open source repos like this, called profiles. So you can associate specific sets of extensions for a workspace, and only those for that workspace, right? So one thing I might do in my user level VS Code config is have a streaming mode that is very tightly stripped down.
Yeah, unfortunately, I load too many extensions, and it's probably because I also work in way more languages than the normal person should.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of VS Code, right? All these different languages in one consistent shell. So
select launch config, maybe.
So if you look at the bottom in the status pane, that you see a little spinny saying loading projects and type checking.
Yeah.
So now that you're loaded here, you should be able to get the prompt.
All righty.
Yep.
And this is the guy. Wait.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All righty.
So the other one that you see there is sort of the default one that just launches the project with no additional arguments.
So the launch settings.json works in Ionide. As a writer user, is it going to work there, or do they have their own format?
That's a great question. I think it should work in Writer. Like, it's been a standard for quite some time, and my impression of Writer is that they try really hard to get feature parity with things you can do from the CLI, and then like expand on that.
Yeah.
And because you can use launch settings from the CLI sort of natively, I expect them to have some support for that. It's actually kind of interesting. So if you look at the launch settings, Jason, the arguments are just a straight out string, which if you've done much like cross-platform shell argument handling, just one giant string for all your args is kind of an error-filled scenario, because if you want to manipulate those args, you have to split them into an array. And like that logic of how do I split this is very OS and shell specific sometimes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All right. Okay, we launched.
Okay.
And we're doing something. And so all this yellow text is the debugger loading assemblies. And occasionally you'll see blue text. So like there's your logging stuff from the F# Analyzer CLI. So we are currently parsing the files in the project. And then we caught on the exception. So this is what you were seeing in normal execution, but now we can debug it. Yeah. So what we should probably do is either put a debug point in type check file or in create context, which are the two functions that are happening on line 6 right above us. And if we do that, we can try and get a little deeper into what is going wrong here.
Type check file, and the other was one of these
I think it
days
was
I'll
create context.
create context. There we go. Let's do
Nice.
this one. Should I can restart this probably?
Yeah, now you can safely restart. Yeah. And that's on me. I should have talked about like, okay, what did we see before? Where should we put breakpoints to see that before we started? It's actually pretty good timing because our debugging support was broken up until like 3 or 4 days ago. So I'm glad you did this now instead of last week.
Yeah, I read, I think I updated on another machine, my VS Code, and I saw the profiles thing. And I had a note to self to read more on it. It just seemed like, also I was like, maybe one of these .NET things, someone will talk about profiles. And all right, let's see. So assembly info. All right. All right. I need.
Yeah. So this one we don't really care about so much. I guess from an analyzer perspective, we do care about it. So we should be able to step through this with the normal like F10, F11 key bindings and that sort of thing. And we should see that we can read all the text of the file. And then this is the big one. What do we get when we parse and type check this file?
All
right. On the left, I'm seeing that check answer is succeeded. So that's great. We were able to parse this file.
Okay.
Now we should be able to step in to create context for this file.
Oh, oops. Sorry about that. I had a breakpoint there, so this should work.
Yeah.
All
Sweet.
right.
So this is pretty straightforward. There's not really anything that breaks in this mapping. So we know that this file is not the one that we could not retrieve context for, if that makes sense. So we should just be able to F5 and
Okay, just
see
resume.
see what the next potentially problematic file is. So this one is the actual library. So that's great.
Okay.
So let's see if we can type check this guy.
Does this have the old school Visual Studio Run to cursor?
I don't think it does. I think the best you can get is like conditional breakpoints. And, like any debug conditional breakpoint expression thing that you may have played with, like you still have to use C# syntax for that, right?
Yeah. All right, let's see.
So this file is good too. This is the library.fs. So we're all set there. What is the next file?
Let's see. Oh, here we go.
Oh, interesting. So here's a question. Why are we trying to analyze the project file?
Is that what it is? It's the project file?
Yeah, so if we look at the exception here, it says could not get context for file, blah, 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 fsproj. So the question I have is like, what is our set of files that is coming in to the project? So one way that we could try and answer this is in the call stack on the left there. If we can go to like run project or something, there may be a stack frame that has the list of projects available. So
run project.
Scroll up a bit. So you see where we are paused on exception in this stack frame. you can actually click on the other lines of code in this stack frame. So like 2 below you, there's the run project call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And if you click on that, what we can see on the left is all of the sort of intermediate pipes and stuff here. So what I'm really interested in is what is being fed into the, if you scroll up just a little bit on the code window here. So what is being fed into ops. Or what is ops.source files, basically?
And
Because that's what we are trying to, oh, you know what?
Hold Option key to switch to. No, that's not going to give me what I want.
Oh, I see. So yeah, you can move your mouse up a little bit and hover over each of those if you want to see the details. The value portions, it should.
Yeah, it just cuts off on me.
I see the problem, I think. Or I
there
see
we
a problem.
Assembly info.
Okay.
Yeah, those are
So
the only.
this one's fine. What is interesting, I think our error message here is wrong. So if you look at could get context for file path.
Code get. I'm sorry.
It's all good. So the error message itself that we're failing with in the exception says could get context for file path, but path in this case is actually the path to the FS proj. So we're not getting the real file that we're looking at in our array.collect call here.
Yeah, that was the weird thing, because earlier it was saying the assembly info, and then when we stepped through, it actually wasn't the assembly info. So it feels like this is reporting the wrong issue.
I agree. So I think we should change path here to like ctx dot. Oh, well, the whole point is we don't have a context. What in the what?
So it failed to create it for library? That's what we're seeing?
I would expect if he failed to create it for the library that we would not have gone into, like we would have seen that in the create context call.
So
you know,
is part of this maybe part of what the theme of this was supposed to be? I noticed the global.json, which surprised me, said .NET 7, but everything else is .NET 6. Is it possible that is what is failing here?
It's possible, but not an immediate smoking gun to me. And the reason for that is I'm going to put on my .NET SDK PM hat here. We explicitly want you to use newer SDKs, even if you are building and targeting and running lower target framework applications. And that's because newer SDKs have bug fixes and new features that can apply to all code. When you build a net 6.0 application on a .NET 7 SDK, we grab all the .NET 6 specific parts that you need to be successful on demand, like on the fly. So we pull down the reference assemblies for that. We pull down the implementation assemblies. A lot of work goes into making that promise true that you can use newer SDKs for older code. And it still makes sense, I think, for this application to target .NET 6.0 because .NET 6 is the current long-term support version of .NET. So long story short, I don't think there's anything wrong with targeting lower in this case.
So it was interesting because I think part of, and this is where I asked in the F# chat, I tried to use F# analyzers on a project where I did target .NET 7 and it crashes. So yeah, that's where part of this was, okay, I can't run analyzers. So
I see. I think I know what is happening there. Okay, so we have to talk about MS Build, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Everything comes back to MS Build. So there are three sort of operations that happen in this chunk of code that we're looking at here. where we are trying to identify the files in a project, type check them, and then analyze them, right? That first step, identify the files in the project, is more complex than it seems because you have to actually evaluate the project file, which is an MS build operation. To correctly evaluate the project, this tool uses a library called proginfo, which is another library in the INI family of libraries. And its whole purpose is to try and take away a lot of the pain of dealing with MS build. Why is dealing with MS build a pain? It's not necessarily MS build itself. It's the fact that the SDK, the .NET SDK, ships all of the libraries that you need to build. And it's your job as somebody trying to use MS build to detect and point to the correct SDK for the application you're working on. Now, that is heavily dependent on the runtime that you are running on, because part of that process says, what runtime am I currently running on? What TFM, or like find me the MS build binaries that map to that and use those. So it's very possible that when you are targeting or trying to analyze a net7 project, that you need to use net7 runtime. And so what we've done in the project info library is make it so that you can use it in different applications with different runtimes, and it will give you the correct bindings to MS build, like transparently. This is why FS autocomplete can work on both net6, net7, and now net8 code, while still just having sort of one logical program. The way we do that is one of two ways. Can you go look in the project file for the CLI inside F# analyzers here? So we have target framework net6.0 as the very first thing, but then we have this roll forward property right after. Roll forward, when you set it in an application, directs the .NET runtime how to find the best runtime to run this application. So what happens is, if you don't specify that ever, then you can only run this application on a .NET 6 runtime. If you specify roll forward to be major, not latest major, but just major, then what happens is the runtime says, okay, prefer a 6.0 runtime if it is available. Otherwise, you could use a 7 or an 8 or whatever. But that's a fallback. In our case, we want to be eager. We want to eagerly roll forward. And so we use latest major, which says you can run this tool on any future runtimes. Why does this matter? You need to run this application on the matching runtime in order to crack or evaluate the matching project. That's the long journey we went on here. So when you are, I'm not 100% sure about your specific project that you're trying to run the analyzers on here, but my very first guess would be that maybe we need to find a way to force this tool to run as net7 to check your project.
Got it. Okay. Well, that kind of that kind of does address the first thing, which I wasn't sure of, which was the first task here was upgrade to .NET 7. So everything you just said means we don't need to do that. We need to figure out how to get analyzers to run. Well, is it the analyzer needs to run on the right version of the SDK that I'm targeting?
Well, here's the other thing I think that could be breaking here. So the F# analyzers SDK has a dependency on F# compiler service, right? And that particular F# compiler service knows how to parse and understand certain kinds of code. If you use that to check a project that uses newer code constructs, that will fail. And so that is another way that this CLI tool needs to be updated. The underlying F# compiler service binding needs to be updated in order to understand more kinds of newer code.
And that makes sense.
That could be another reason.
That's what I thought that's what I assumed was the issue, that we have newer F# compiler. And so you can't you have to upgrade it to support. Of course, not familiar with this code base, how that binding actually happens. Well, here's F# compiler service.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You would want to update that dependency, and then there might be code breaks that happen because there are new changes to the syntax tree or that sort of thing. So like
Yeah.
that would be step 1, bump that version. Step 2, fix any compiler breaks. Step 3, test. But you did this the right way. Like you tried to verify that can I run the thing before I start making changes.
Yeah, and kind of epically failing on that one.
Unfortunately, I have to leave for another meeting right now. But this is where I would start poking.
Yeah.
And again, I'm sorry I have to leave right now and so quickly. But Damien, I would be totally happy to try and pair on this with you another time to continue. And yes, there's a question in chat. Florian said it's a pretty old version of ProjInfo. Could that be relevant as well? Totally. ProjInfo changes whenever we find a bug in how we load MS Build or how we understand projects. And so, yeah, updating ProjInfo would probably make it easier for you to understand ref assemblies, which are now part of F#.
That would be this guy, right?
Definitely, Chad.
Exactly right.
Thank you very much for your time. We know now the next steps, and then we're going to move to do that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that might be worth a stab in this session if you all have additional time too, trying to update those libraries and see if that fixes the sample run for you.
Definitely.
Awesome.
So
Thanks a
good
lot.
luck, everybody. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Right.
Cool. See, one of the benefits of amplifying F#, we bring to the session an expert on on the maintainer itself of this project. So it's the best thing to add to the list. So yeah, what do you think? Yeah, as Chad said, we start updating the dependencies and see what is going on there.
Yeah, and I like Florian's suggestion that perhaps it's this ProjInfo. Not sure what the latest version of that one is. Oops, sorry. Project system. All right. So yeah, that is pretty old. I guess we can try just updating this and see if it compiles first.
Guess I wouldn't reload. Is it reloading? I can't see it.
I was gonna try to recompile.
Yes, definitely. That's what.
Probably shouldn't have went immediately for release, but let's see. And guess I can check. I don't see any new problems that arose. Oh, that's going.
So looking at these warnings, I would probably bump some other packages as well, just to avoid the downgrades, like F# core and Microsoft Build versions.
Okay. Let's just looking at the. I know if this project was using Packet, there's like Packet update. Is there an easy way to do mass updates?
There's an equivalent .NET something update NuGet package. There must be something. Basically just bump the versions that we saw there.
All right, so yeah, the warning, you're saying the warning had,
Yeah, so if the
Down-
warning says it goes from 605 to 603, then I would just bump to 605 for F sharp core, for example.
yeah, F sharp core 605, all right. I will say this is in my previous .NET time, like doing, I can't even remember the name of it. It was like assembly binding redirects was a lot that I had to do. I haven't had to do it since I came back. I don't know. All right, Microsoft Build, that's not a thing. I'd keep, I don't see anything. That's the only main one. Did you see anything else?
Could you go to the CLI project, or I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm in the SDK. Yeah. Oh, there we go. All right. So MS Build 17.2 can do that one.
And there are a couple of other MS builds. I would bump them all to 17.2. And up top, the F sharp core, just bump that to 5 as well. So 605 up top then.
05.
And the last utilities core, one
Yep.
more.
One more. Awesome.
Let's just build it again, should be fine.
I super appreciate you guys' patience with me here. All right, we got another option analyzer, the actual target project. I'll wait for it to finish. And F sharp compiler services. It says F sharp compiler service has a equals on the 603.
Yes, it does tend to do that. So we might want to bump that version as well.
Oh, did we not bump F sharp? I thought, oh yeah, we didn't. All right, so F sharp compiler services is in SDK, and let's find. It didn't give us an update version.
Well, we probably want to go to the latest one there, but I noticed that it has an even higher version of F sharp core. So we might want to bump that again. So you want to
This guy.
Yeah,
43,
or maybe go with the 101, the 7, because that was your global JSON version, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah, makes sense. Alrighty. That was only here, right? And like you said, is that the right version of Sharp Core?
We will click the.
I think it will require 7. The actual code would be required to be 7.
Yes, that looks like it.
Does it? You think that the point version shouldn't matter? Or should I just go lower?
I think for now the SDK, the F sharp compiler service appears to be using 7.0.0. So if you just go 2 pages back, you can actually easily see that in the browser. So we picked, yes, 7.0.1.
Yeah, and if I go to dependencies.
Yes, exactly.
All right, 7, got it. All right, so let's bump all these to 7. So in a way, we are updating 7. Well, the 7 of the compiler.
Yes, exactly.
And perhaps that's like, I didn't describe this effectively before. All right, so that one, I think there's one more. Yep, right here. Okay. 7.0.0. All right, let's give this another shot and see. Downgrade 17.4.
Okay, so the F# compiler service also has a dependency on Microsoft built framework, but that actually is a bit of an unfortunate one. If you go back to the analyzer CLI FSproj,
Yeah.
you'll notice that all these Microsoft built framework have these exclude assets equals runtime. And that actually means at runtime, we don't want to use the DLLs that come with this NuGet package. Why is that? And that's because Ionite's proj.info will actually try and load these from the downloaded SDK that we're currently targeting. So it doesn't want to take the compile time dependency. It will just load the right DLLs at runtime. But there was a bit of a hackle with the F# compiler service that it took a dependency on that. And so you cannot exclude them because another project literally wants them to be there. So long story short, I actually proposed that we just go to the latest stable F# compiler service, which doesn't have this dependency. And yeah, my bad. But the 101 we have, let's go to 7.200 there.
Insider info on that one.
Yeah. It's I lost a couple of hairs on that day, but
okay.
And our F# core version would need to be 7.0.200 to match that.
Okay, and I need that. All right, that is 7.0.200. And I'm just realizing, didn't actually look at this build locator to see if it might pull in other things. Okay, no dependencies on that one.
So build locator is also doing the same kind of mechanism that Ionite proj.info does. It really locates the assemblies that we want to use at runtime. So that's why it also just has no dependencies.
Does it make sense to bump this one while we're at it?
Can't really say what they are doing with that. So maybe not.
All right, let's try and just get rid of some of this yellow and maybe we'll be good. This is actually encouraging though. All right, I missed options analyzer. Okay. And I didn't read everything. Dependent compiler service ended up with 43.7. I wonder.
To show the F# compiler service version again, so it may actually be 43 that we need.
Sorry, this is Sharp compiler.
Yes. Try 43 instead.
Okay, that was I saw it in this log before. 43.
43.7.200 should be the version.
43.7.200. Okay.
The downside now is that we bumped a couple of versions, so maybe we'll need to change some actual code because of some API changes.
Yeah, From top of my head, there was a change in the syntax tree in the, I think in the compiler itself, but I'm not sure if that went off like this.
All right.
No build.
Cool. So let's, I guess, just try and debug again.
Yeah, I can actually do the Chet's debug stuff. Let's see. It would be kind of cool if this worked, because it would have meant we didn't go off track, that we actually were solving the issue that we tried to solve.
True, but it was a bit at the risk of solving, I guess, too much before we knew what needed to be touched. So sort of glad we took this route.
Yeah. I guess it's the key to know before you go in and change a project you're not familiar with, just make sure that it works as advertised.
Exactly. This is also something we call yak shaving. Like there's a thing we just want to implement, but we need to do a couple of things beforehand to get there. And that's just the vast majority of contributing to F# projects.
Yeah. I actually learned a lot in this session, despite the
Me too.
it's just struggles. So let's continue. I don't know if I'm just optimistic, but it feels like it's doing more.
Yeah, we didn't crash that for sure. It was still doing nothing. Oh yeah.
Okay. Great context. I'm gonna let it continue. Let's go again. Might be able to get past. Oh, I think it actually did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, looks like it.
Oh, wow.
So in theory now, if you go to the sample and do change that, it will automatically pick the analyzer, will tell you if you did something that's supposed to be there.
Yeah. So if we ran the original command, right, we should think, hopefully I got this right. I think so. So if we ran this now, it should work. Now, do we know when we upgrade to compiler services and all that stuff, if people are on down level versions of F#, they should be good. We're not in like a weird thing where to analyze, maybe this is a bit what Chet was saying, but are we in a weird scenario where you have to match these things up?
No, you can do analysis with a newer compiler versus code that will be compiling against an older compiler. There are edge cases to that, like your analyzer might pick up that should respect the language version you are using. For example, a project that cannot use interpolated strings shouldn't get any warnings for interpolated strings based on the newer compiler that's trying to analyze that. But overall, it should be okay to do that, and this is frequently what happens. With IDEs, they are using the recent compilers and tooling, even though you are going to use an SDK that compiles with a fixed version.
By the way, like this is one of the things I appreciate from .NET, because being in Scala, we have a little bit more compatibility issues. So I guess I can kind of maybe commit this, and I don't know what people are like for time. Like the use case that I had, which was, I think, basically just an analyzer. My thought was, if you tried to define something outside of a module, that I wanted to throw an error. Do we have time for that? I know.
I still have some time, so.
All right, so let me kind of commit what we did. This is great because at least now I know how to get it working on. Now we've got it where it compiles against .NET 7. Sorry, let me do it real quick. Hit status, make sure I don't have a bunch of. I did make a change to program that for that print line.
I think that was amazing. That I don't know. It seemed like Chet, when someone is working on a project that he maintains, he appears magically from somewhere. This that's how it happens. I work in I&I. We are working on I&I, and Chet appears. I was like, oh my god, or Jimmy. So it's like really,
is Chet one of the maintainers there?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, awesome.
He's a superhero, so he's Microsoft, working on Microsoft, but also helping the community. So that's awesome.
And I think it's useful. I'm gonna leave the launch settings thing in there. Okay. And I'll just commit something. I'll go look at. Should I look at, is there anything about particular contribution or commit messages? I didn't see anything like that.
They're not that strict on it.
Yeah, I don't see any. Okay, so upgraded to Abstract 4 7 plus and more MS F#. Compiler services. All right. Awesome. So just for the sake of kind of this exercise, I figured I can just do another project right here. Won't check that one in, just to kind of try it out.
Yeah, sounds sensible.
Okay.
So from my understanding, we ran the analyzer against that option analyzer project, or that is the analyzer?
That is, I
mean, there was at least a message which said, hey, you should not use option.value. So probably this is the analyzer that is, so we can find that.
All right. Yeah, okay.
Message, but I guess that's probably the analyzer who's throwing that message. So
the attribute gives it away. So that's most likely the analyzer.
Yeah.
There it is.
What I wonder is, did they intentionally? Oh, here we are, not used. I think this is the trick.
Oh, okay, they use the same project, like they sample and the analyzer is one project. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, maybe let's add just another file in that project and play around with it for just a little bit.
Yeah, we can do that. Now that I see the analyzer stuff, this is where I guess, I don't know how familiar I knew you were with. This is where a little bit of read in on custom analyzers would have helped, but let's go a little yellow here. All right, real quick, F# analyzers, option analyzer, and let's add a file. I'll just do restriction.
But Damien, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I don't know if you already spoke about it, but so just for me, because I think it's interesting. So what was your use case on digging into the F# analyzers at all? So do you have a real world use case, or was it just to understand what you could do basically? I mean, it's maybe not in scope of getting this running, but it's an interesting question for me.
Yeah, I went over it a little bit at the beginning. So I work on an open source library that is about like modeling business logic and stuff in a functional way, say functional domain modeling. And the tooling is meant to be language agnostic, but it's kind of like a compiler compiler pipeline itself, where it has a front end, middle end, and a back end, and the default front end is in Elm. And it just so happens that the data format that we have really aligns closely with Elm, but F# has better overall ecosystem and tooling than Elm, but F# has more language constructs than what we support. One such thing is like in the format that we have, you can only have every type has to appear in a module. So the example I was looking to do is to see if I can make an F# analyzer that if we have a type that appears outside of a module, I will make a custom error message. And so the idea here is to restrict F# in a way where I can generate my IR, and it can be a front end, but the user isn't surprised because the analyzer kind of throws some errors.
Okay, I see that. It's interesting. So it's probably not the let me say normal use case where you say, okay, I just don't think this is a good pattern. So like in C# there are a bunch of analyzers, but I always ask myself, okay, if you can do so many things wrong in a language and you are not able to express what you want to express, is there something wrong with the language that you use probably? Yeah. So my intention was always that in F# I do not need a lot of analyzers because I can express the things that I want to express. And in C# you can do things really wrong, but the compiler will not complain, and you have no way of forcing the user to encoding what should it be. He can just do a lot of things, but your use case is probably a little bit how to say not completely common or standard. It sounds very interesting what you're doing.
Yeah. Like I've thought of doing the same thing with Scala, but Scala doesn't have the idea of a compiler service, so you have to make a compiler plugin. It's a very heavy lift to do this, and I intend on doing it, but F# with the F# compiler service and the analyzers in particular seemed really interesting. Especially if I'm not trying to transform the tree, if I'm just trying to report on the tree, it's like perfect. The only thing I wish was that it was actually built in, but it sounds like there's plans at some point to do that. All right, let's do, I guess I should call it, let's do restriction analyzer. And I'm gonna cheat by, can I move this to the right, split right? And let's see, I'm just gonna grab all this. And
you have a typo in the module name, just in case.
What was
There's a typo in the name, on the module name.
Module restriction. Oh, thanks. And maybe we can do this one really quick with a little help from you.
Yeah, I actually have something in mind, which we could just try quick and dirty. You probably want to double check the README and copy the sample they have from there. Because I'm not sure you're going to really need to visit expression, or we can just shortcut it without it.
Yeah, good point.
There's a section writing analyzers. And the code snippet over there looks like what we need.
Let's see. Writing analyzers and
Yeah,
this
exactly.
guy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So it appears that an analyzer is just a bit of a function that takes in that context that we built and returns probably like a list of or a collection of diagnostics. So yeah, a list of message.
Yeah.
So we need to construct message based on whatever's in our context. And
Okay.
in your case, you want to give like a warning when there's a type inside a namespace, probably, right?
Yes, exactly.
Cool. I'm going to send you a link in the chat, and this is what we call the online tool. And it's an easy way to sort of see the syntax tree of some code. You could bring that up. All right. And if we just create some sample, like a namespace with a type in it.
Let's do namespace demo, and let's do type. All right, and
Yeah, hit the button.
sorry, I hit save by default, and now I.
Yeah, no, it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
You need to click the button.
Yeah, no, it's just forgot where I was for a moment.
So this is something that we use for Phantomus, but it's the same syntax tree that the F# compiler exposes. And basically, this is how it looks like.
Yeah.
And we can see we have a syn module namespace, which is the whole thing. And it has a declared namespace, meaning it is namespace demo. And that demo has a child of types, and that's what we want to avoid. If we can detect that this happens in a file, that's basically when we want to return a message.
This syn module or namespace, I'm curious if, let me say this, if this was module demo, do I get the same?
It's going to be slightly different. So, okay, now this is a nested module, which you're doing, but you can also create a top level module. So if you remove the equals,
I wasn't sure if, all right, so this is, all right.
Top level. And pay close attention, because line 4 is going to be exactly the same, but the declared namespace is going to change on line 5. So if you click to show EST. So now this is a named module.
Oh, okay. So that's how we know.
Yes, exactly.
So that's how we know that we're at the top level instead of it being nested.
Yes.
Sorry.
If you create a nested module in the side of the demo, then you'll see that that's on the same level of types, and it is also going to be named nested module. So you just enter unit or something, or it doesn't really matter if it's valid.
Oh yeah, I always forget about that. That should work. Okay.
All right. Yeah, you can see nested module on line 19.
Okay, and is that appearing? Is that appearing in the types list?
Not in the types, but types and nested module are part of the same list as children of syn module or namespace.
Got it. Okay. So once again, the key here then is going to be within
Yeah.
syn module or namespace, look
Yeah.
for anything that appears. Okay.
Look
Cool.
for like
So
a declared namespace.
let's go back to this. Awesome. All right.
And could you take a peek in what's inside the context type? Because I would assume that the parsed tree is going to be in there.
Context. Are you, come on, work with me, Ionide.
If you could go to the type or hover, or does it give you anything?
Oh, there we go. Okay. File
parse
name,
tree.
Parse tree. All right.
That's the one. So
I see parse tree and type tree. Does
we want to use the type tree. Sorry, the parse tree. So the parse tree is just like what does the syntax look like, and the type tree will actually be what kind of types are associated with, and some more information about what the code actually does. But we can sort of detect the thing you're after based on the syntax alone. We don't need to know what exactly everything does.
Oh, come on. All right. Not sure why my stuff is broken here, but for now, let's do this. Sorry for doing, before the session, I saw that my VS Code Vim extension wasn't working, and I don't know how to use without Vim. So that's why you see me do. All right. So with this, we want to match on
So
the top level.
The root is going to be, you can actually check again in the online tool. The root is probably going to be like something called parsed input, I believe. Yes, so it doesn't say it, but line 1 is parsed input.impl file, because we're using an implementation file, not a signature file.
Parsed, come on. Parsed input. Oh, first of all, it's not.
Do you need to open the namespaces?
Yes, you do. So we'll need to open a namespace from that F# compiler service package that we added, which is going to be f#.compiler.syntax tree.
Okay.
Right, and then you should be able to do parsed input.
Is it syntax tree?
It might just be syntax. It is.
Maybe refreshing the VS window to see if that helps with intelligence. Because
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
let's say that you can reload the window, I think, on VS Code to see if that helps with intelligence, because intelligence should be working.
Close and reopen.
Yeah, so if you, I think, I don't know, it's Command Shift P on VS Code, and then it will say reload window. You can type reload window, reload. And
Reload.
yeah, I think it's reload, and it's reload window. Yeah, the third option. Yeah, that one. And that will load again the window, and it will, help with that. That helps. I also use Red about every time the Ionize is not working, as expected. I normally reload the window, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, okay, nice. What is all this?
some gibberish. Why? What? Just delete. I don't think that's cyanide, I hope.
That is that even, I don't think that's real output.
It's like Copilot stuff or suggestion or.
Let me. Come on. Okay. Yeah, that was a weird one. All my plugins are still loading. We were saying parsed input dot impl impl file. Now that I think about it, I could actually do this. Ironically, I could actually do the way we're running this. I could actually use Writer to do my development. Yeah. Since you're just running the command line.
That works better for you. There's obviously no shame in that.
All right. I may actually do that because I've been having this issue with VS Code. While that's still loading, I'll do a little race and see if my Writer stuff comes up quicker.
Yeah, the fact that you have all these extensions in VS Code is getting a lot of time from VS Code to basically be ready to
Yeah.
You have Docker. I think you have also Adobe products. It's going to take a lot of time.
There used to be a time where all these extensions didn't load unless you clicked on a file that used it, but it seems like everything is eager these days. I feel like it's okay. It may be ready. All right. So this impl file, what does this look like?
Yeah, that's part of the syntax tree. It can be a bit overwhelming because it's all like new stuff, but they're basically a bunch of types. And an impl file, the underscore you have, has like the next type, and we just want to grab that. So maybe give it the name. And I'm not sure how well your pattern matching skills are, but we basically need to match on the next type. That's
Okay, so this is a parse impl file.
Yep, which you can do like a nested pattern if you like.
Yeah.
One idea to help with the types, if you open up the info panel in VS Code, you can see the documentation for the type, like in the white editor. That could help.
Which is that the structure or
info panel? If you go to the command palette like you just had.
Oh, okay.
And I think open info panel or something like this. Yeah. And if you now hover over the impl file or click on the impl file, you can click on this thingy, right? And
oh, nice.
Yeah, that should help writing the pattern matching.
It's really
Nice to know about this. All right, so parse input file, as a file name. Don't care about the parse impl file input. I feel like I'm gonna be really bad at this just because I have all the eyes on me.
No worries, no worries.
And what do we got? We've got file name, script, qualified name, scope pragmas.
Content is
Content
the one
is
you
what I
want.
want. Oh gosh, oh boy, there's got to be. I
Do
would
you
think
know about named access in pattern matching?
that, probably not. Do I just
Okay.
do content equals? or
Yes,
something?
exactly. So we don't need to add underscores for everything, just content equals contents.
Okay.
And now the thing is, in AST, you could have multiple namespaces in one file. So where we in the tool had one, you could
Yeah.
potentially have multiple. So we'll just need to do some sort of a mapping for all the namespaces. And we can basically try and map if any of those namespaces has what is a namespace and has a type, then let's just map that to a message which we need to return. So we'll just work our way through like that.
Okay. So maybe
Well,
this is something. Maybe if we define, so this is going to give me a namespace, right?
Yes, well, it's going to take the SYN module or namespace, and it might return a message. So maybe call the function like a has type in namespace and return an option of the message.
Yeah, gotcha. And namespace and
Gotcha. Yeah, you want to return none instead of units, but
yeah. Using, all right, there we go. That's a little better. And let's do list map.
you can actually use list.choose, and list.choose will automatically only map something if it has a value inside of an option.
Nice. Yeah, in Scala, I think we call that collect. Okay, let's start with that. And my code complete. Anyway, let's see if I can. Nothing worse than when you know your types are right and your IDE hasn't caught up. Okay, so this is where, once again, odd. This is SYN mod or namespace. And that should help a little. And we want to say SYN mod or.
And you're missing the column before the message that is doesn't for the return type.
Thanks. And probably just want to call this message. Oh, sorry. I did that wrong.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
Okay. So now I can say target range.
I think you need a pattern match on that. Is it? Or
Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah,
a
yeah.
discriminated union as well.
Is it a single case union?
It is.
Message module or namespace. And we can,
We're interested just when the kind. So the kind is the enum, which had that declared or module. So we can say syn module or namespace type, I believe, or no, it's kind.
yeah, I thought it said kind. Just for the heck of it, let's do that so I can see a result. I thought it was kind.
yes.
Yeah, kind, syn module or namespace kind, and that is
Name module.
declared module. So can I do what I want to do here, which is to say, first of all, what is all that? Yeah, this is a weird plugin or something that's making this. All right, kind equals declare module.
Yeah, it's gonna work, but you're interested actually in declared namespace.
Ah, declared namespace. Yeah. Namespace. And in that case, let's just say none. Because that is
Well, it's actually the other
we
way.
have to look in the declared
Yes.
namespace. And it's, I'm sorry, I forgot the tree already.
So this is also the syn modular namespace is going to have children or content or something along those lines.
And that's where types shows up.
And that's where we're going to check if there are any types in. So I think it's called decals in this case.
Yes,
decals short for declarations.
Decals.
Yeah, and for this pattern matching thing, you need a semicolon instead of a regular comma.
Ah, yes. Thank you.
It's commas. There is commas for one, and then there is
Okay, and basically, if decals,
So decals is a list of another union. So we just want to do something like lists.exist and then do some sort of a check whether any of those decals is the types.
got you. Wow, what?
Maybe you can disable the other
I just don't know what
plugins,
plugin is doing that. That's why I can't.
but can maybe show just disable all other stuff but Ionite.
I don't know. Is there a way to just disable all plugins except one? Yeah. Yeah, I remember long ago installing the plugin that's doing this. I can't remember the name. Anyway, exist, and I give it a predicate, and I always forget when I can do can I do this in this context? I can't. I have to put it in parentheses. And this is going to be a whatever. I'll just call it the thing. I don't know.
And you'll need to pattern match that again.
Ah,
So syn module decal is also just a discriminate union.
gotcha.
Do you know about
Can I do a function here?
Yes, exactly. The function keyword.
Oh, okay. Function. And what are the options here? I'm looking for.
You're looking for syn module decal and then dot types that corresponds to line 6.
Okay, so I'm looking for syn module decal and dot types, got it. And I don't really care how many things. 1, 2.
Yep.
Is there S missing on the exist? Or is it okay?
And exists, I just say true, and I can then say false. And there's an S on exists. Okay. All sorts of errors here. Sorry about that. The value is unused. Oh.
Could you try prefixing that? So syn modular namespace kinds dot declare namespace.
Yeah.
Not sure if it's just like a bug in the IDE right now, or if it's an actual coding problem.
And let me hide this for now, give us a little bit more space. Okay. Expecting syn module.
Right,
Oh.
so this only verifies whether it exists, and if it does, we should return a message. So this is the condition.
All right, sorry about that. Oh, this is so weird. I really wish I knew what was this plugin making the syntax so wonky. Any way of me to just find
Disable all installer stations. But that one will disable ION as well, I think.
I wonder if do you almost have 300 of them?
Oh my God.
yeah, it's time to clean up. I do that and then do ionide.
We need to reload the window like before. Hopefully this time is not bringing all the analyze. Reload the window. That might help because you're still maybe it's confused still. Hopefully none of them will load now. Something is loading.
Yeah, apologies on that one.
Guys, I gotta go. So I say thank you very much for your time and your effort. I mean, it was a great step. Now we can actually use it and write our own stuff. And I wish you good luck, and hopefully see you some other time again.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for coming.
I wanted.
Have a nice weekend.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Right.
Oh yeah, we've been at this for if my IDE would just behave itself, we might actually finish this. Okay, is it still analyzing? Project is still loaded. Okay, won't let me touch in here. All right, there it goes. I see my F# Explorer. And all right. Still no. I think you guys have figured out why I use Writer. I need to like delete Visual Studio Code and start all over. Come on. Okay. All right. There we go. No? I feel like it's maybe the fact I have bad code here is what's making everything slow.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why it is struggling.
All right.
Anyway.
So when I take the decals, I see if it exists. Exists is going to filter out.
Gonna return a Boolean, so a couple of options, I guess. You could either save it in some sort of a value, like let has types, and then just equals the whole expression.
Yeah.
And then at the end, just do like an if else to return the message option.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I probably, instead of this Boolean, I probably want to collect the names of all the types. Oh, no, I can do it. That's for now, I can just do this. If has types, then what does this message structure look like? Come
I'm guessing
on.
you could take a peek in the other file at the bottom of library fs. It probably already creates them there.
Yeah. Let's see.
I'm guessing it's going to be a record.
Is this it? I guess this is it. Type.
Yeah, looks like it.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Setting type. equals, I'm just gonna,
Yeah, just go with some
Mainly-
hard coded stuff.
yeah. Restriction analyzer, and let's just do let's do message equals types not allowed, and then I can give it some custom code, and let's say whatever it's T restriction 001 range. Do I have to give it a range? Oh, no, where I
Looks
get-
like it. You could pass in range.0. And that would require another open namespace. So range.0 comes from F# compiler.txt.
And let's do fixes.
You want to pipe that to some because we need to give an option back.
Yeah. And let's run.
You would add a wildcard pattern match clause if in case the namespace kind is something else. So yeah.
Did we finally get this? Righty. As I give up over here. And I can probably just,
Did you add restriction? Is restriction part of the project? Because it's just, like the text of restriction has another color than library, so it makes me wonder.
yeah, it's there.
Okay.
You know what? I'm going to kill my VS Code. And now that I've got I9 up, my VS Code will hopefully. All right. All right, now I can kind of see what's happening. No assignment given. Oh, severity. Missed that one.
You can actually do Alt Enter right now because of the light bubble, and it should complete that for you. Yeah.
Or I can let Copilot do this for me. Come on. Sorry about that. I'll just do error. All right. And was it? It's not 0.
Might be uppercase 0.
Yeah. All right. That looks a little bit better.
But before we test this, one more thing. We don't have any file inside that project that will actually trigger this. So we want to add an empty file with a namespace in it and a type in it, and then just hope that it reports that file.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Come on. Save that one. And namespace. And let's do 5. All right. That should do it. What are the chances that I have my history down here? I want to run this guy.
I think the running configurations, maybe you see this, there seems to be a by default created a launch setting at the top right. Might be what Chet said that you.
Yeah. A sharp analyzers. Oh,
Yeah.
it's the same. Look.
Oh, nice. Just run
It
that.
does work. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm gonna use that a little bit more often now.
Definitely.
Works across IDEs. Let's see. Everything is gonna be slow for me today. Guarantee you guys, my things don't normally move this slow. I guess it is the streamer's curse, as they say.
It's not really
Yeah.
cursed. It's also just, yeah, your GPU is doing a lot of things to get that stream to us. So
Yeah.
And also one thing I noticed is like I found that there's a bug on some certain old version of Mac where you need to connect your monitor in a certain side. You cannot connect it on the left, you need to connect it on the right. Otherwise, when you know connect your MacBook Pro onto a machine, it actually doesn't play nicely. So if I connect my, let's say my machine to the left side, is going to go really slow. If I connect it to the right side, it actually behaves. So there's some things that just don't really work sometimes.
The input list was empty.
Yeah, this might be that in the sample as the analyzer, there was a stream pass there, you know, and if you check the library one, there was I think, attribute name passed to the analyzer attribute.
Yeah.
Yeah, or in the README. Scroll up.
Yes, option analyzer. Yeah, it's interesting.
Maybe that's it. That might be something related to.
Is our code defensive enough? Like we're not doing something that will explode when you have an empty list, right?
It's possible that we missed something, but
The list not exists.
it seems like we cover all the cases. Let's try maybe the missing attribute. which is weird that it compiled.
There's a bar missing.
Yeah.
It's okay to pass an empty list until list exists.
All right, let's see. Where is it? Wait in. A sharp list, get head. Program. It's not going to report on the actual analyzer. I guess I could do the whole debug thing. Right here.
But it's failing on load project all of a sudden, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Sorry. Load analyzers, registered 0 analyzers. Does it allow multiple analyzers in a?
Wait, the load analyzers message is kind of funky, is it not? It is going into like CLI bin debug and then sample bin release. Are we
Yeah,
are we all good there?
You know what? Let's try. Let me try just running.
Yeah.
I think we had that whole thing. Let's try that. In a little bit. Come on. Come on. Registered 1 analyzers from 2 DLLs. Did I comment this guy out? No, I didn't.
Okay, so it didn't pick up our analyzer.
Let's look at this real quick.
Can you change
Do
the
we
analyzer that you are targeting instead of using the optional analyzer to use the one that we are interested on the the command line?
do we have to hook it up at some point?
It only uses paths. So maybe maybe if I comment that one out like I did, maybe we'll.
Oh wait, it's looking in the release folder, right? So we probably want to build our project in release again for it to be picked up.
We've got the run.
Yes, but that's the run analyzer CLI. So the
Yeah, that's the
analyzer's
run
path
the analyzer. Yeah. No, you're right. I guess this will confirm it if it still does options here, but I think you're right, Florian. It only looks like it's about to tell me, and then it pauses. Yeah, so it ran the opposite. So yeah, definitely, you're 100% right. .NET. So maybe I can actually leave this .NET build like that. This is pretty cool though. Up 2 or 3. Oh, nope. Reading the wrong message. Got excited for a moment. A namespace and a module named option analyzer both occur in 2 parts of the assembly. What did I do? Module restriction.
The namespace, the test case is probably clashing.
Ah,
You want to
yeah.
rename that to just test case.
Thanks. So I imagine if I wanted to use the analyzer outside of INI and with the command line, I could, for example, do an MS build integration that calls the F# analyzer.
Yep, something along those lines. Or if you're using fake or any other kind of scripts, that might also be an option.
Yeah. All right, let's see. If we are lucky, this will work and we will be good to go. Let's see if it loads 2 analyzers. Despite my IDE and Visual Studio Code issues, this wasn't too bad. I probably would have had some issues navigating the tree without you guys, but 2 analyzers, okay, that's a good sign.
Yeah, there's nothing inherently difficult about the syntax tree. It's just very foreign the first time you need to interact with it. Let me also slide you a link to some documentation that is out there, which is a good addition next to the info panel.
Yeah, and there it is. Type's not
Nice.
allowed.
Sweet.
Nice.
Sweet, we made it.
Yeah, that is awesome. This is precisely the sort of thing that I was looking for. I mean, navigating the tree, I've looked at I think I looked briefly, thanks to Edgar, at Oak. Which, yeah, that's gonna take a while to I don't know why I'm drawing a blank now. Oh, active patterns. Are there no active patterns around that kind of make this traversal a little bit easier?
There is the visit syntax tree, that like tree visitor in the F# compiler service, which would help with that. I can slide you a link to that as well.
Awesome. But yeah, no, I think this is great. So, and hopefully I'm not doing what you guys do, but it looks like we've got this working on .NET 7. I was able to get a simple analyzer to produce an error, which essentially restricts allow top level types. It's exactly what I was looking for. Awesome.
Right?
I can stop sharing.
That's really good. So yeah, I mean was the the goals that we planned for the session, and yeah, we're really happy that we made it through. And that's basically what we're here. Amplifying F# is all about, helping either maintainers or contributors to, figure out some of the technical challenge that might be facing with open source project like the F# analyzes SDK, or something with compiler, something with editor tooling, with Ionide, Rider, and those tools that we all use and we all really enjoy. So thank you very much for your time, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop